The film begins in Spain, where we learn that at that time a famine was spreading across all of Europe. Governments started enforcing strict rationing policies on food and drinks, as well as on clean water consumption. All of this happened because Europe's population had grown enormously, while the remaining supplies of food and beverages had become far less than what people needed. Demand was now much higher than supply, and resources were no longer sufficient for everyone. As a result, European countries began adopting even harsher measures to preserve food and water. These measures included gathering all children, elderly people, and pregnant women and executing them. Governments believed that children and the elderly were useless and only consumed food and water unnecessarily, becoming a burden on the state. The priority became preserving only men and women of working age, from youth up to their 50s. Spain was one of the European countries that enforced these brutal laws. We meet Maya, a pregnant woman, and her husband Miko, who are trying to escape Spain because of the suffering they are living through there. Through a flashback, we learn that the Spanish government forcibly took their only daughter from them in order to execute her. Maya and Miko were devastated by the loss, but there was nothing they could do to save her. After some time, Maya becomes pregnant again. This time, she is determined to save the baby in her womb. She comes up with a plan to escape Spain with Miko and travel to Ireland, where the laws are still humane and haven't reached such a level of brutality. Maya shares the idea with Miko, and although he is extremely worried, he agrees. However, they can't find any legal way to travel to Ireland, so they hide inside a shipping container that is supposed to be transported to the port, and then loaded onto a ship heading for Ireland. Back in the present, we see Maya and Miko paying a man to let them get inside the container. The money isn't enough, so Miko is forced to take off Maya's ring and give it to the man in exchange for letting them in. The container is deep, flooded with water, and already packed with other fugitives. Once everyone gets inside, the man locks the container from the outside. It is then loaded onto a truck to be taken to the port, where it will later be shipped on a vessel. As the truck starts moving, Maya tightly wraps cloth around her stomach to hide her pregnancy. If anyone discovered she was pregnant, their secret would be exposed, and they could be reported or arrested. Suddenly, the truck stops, the container is opened, and more people are forced inside with Maya and Miko, making the space extremely cramped. The driver refuses to move, fires a shot into the air from his gun to get everyone's attention, and tells them there is another container that just arrived on a different truck. He says the extra people should move there instead of crowding this one. The people hesitate to get out, since no one wants to leave after already boarding, they just want to escape and be done with it. Still, many people are forced out in a chaotic way, and Miko is among them. He tries to explain that leaving would separate him from his wife, but no one listens. He is dragged out with the others, the container door is shut on those who remain inside with Maya, and Miko is loaded into another container on a second truck heading to the port. Maya looks through a small opening in the container to find Miko, and sees that he has been placed in another container marked with the number 107. She calls him on her phone to check on him and tells him she's scared because he's no longer with her. Miko reassures her, saying they will reunite once they reach the port. He tells her to take good care of herself and their unborn child, to carefully ration the food and water she has for the journey, and not to talk to or trust anyone around her, because everyone is a stranger now. He promises her that everything will pass safely and without trouble, then ends the call. As the container continues moving, Maya looks out through the opening and sees long lines of people standing with water containers, waiting for the government to distribute their water rations. The situation is deeply humiliating and degrading. People are beaten and even killed by the police simply for asking for a little water to drink. Maya's fear intensifies, especially when police bullets accidentally pierce the container, and the water leaking inside begins to increase. She looks out again and sees the police abducting children from their parents, as well as pregnant women and the elderly. They are locked inside cages on top of trucks and transported like animals to camps where they will be executed. Despite her overwhelming fear, Maya feels a quiet sense of relief deep inside, because she has finally managed to hide her pregnancy and escape, instead of suffering the same fate as those people. Finally, The truck carrying the container arrives at the port, but armed men are controlling the area. They open the container to inspect it and assume it is empty. However, we know that the people inside had hidden at the very back of the container, since it was extremely long. They placed a metal barrier in front of them so that anyone looking inside would think this was the end of the container and that it was empty. One of the armed men becomes suspicious that people might be hiding behind the metal barrier. He asks them to come out, assuring them that he will not hurt them. At that moment, Maya is hanging from above, gripping the ceiling of the container, while a young woman pushes the metal barrier aside to come out, believing the man's promise. The moment he sees her, he shoots her dead without hesitation, then orders his men to kill everyone hiding inside the container. They execute all of them, steal their bags, and remove the bodies from the container, without noticing Maya at all. Through a small opening, Maya spots container number 107, the one carrying her husband, Miko. She becomes extremely worried about him and sends him a voice message on WhatsApp, warning him about the armed men who are searching the containers and killing everyone inside them. After that, the men close the container again, since it also contains export goods that were meant to be shipped along with the people. The truck driver believes that everyone inside the container is dead, so he drives it to the loading dock to be shipped. A crane lifts the container and places it on top of other shipping containers aboard the vessel heading to Ireland. Maya tries calling Miko, but his phone is turned off. She leaves him a voice message telling him she is at the port, and that the container she is in has already been loaded onto the ship. She asks where he is so he can catch up and travel with her, and tells him to call her as soon as he hears the message. Maya then searches through the bags of the people who were killed, hoping to find anything useful, since the criminals did not steal all the luggage. She finds a flashlight, a lighter, bottles of water, mobile phones, and some food. After a while, the cargo ship sails into a very powerful storm. The container holding Maya, which is already filled with water, is not secured properly, so it starts tilting violently from side to side. Maya screams and cries for help, but no one hears her. The container falls into the middle of the sea, along with other containers that also have people inside. Maya finds herself alone inside the container in the open ocean, with no idea what to do. The container is tightly sealed from the outside, so she cannot escape. She begins searching through the cargo stored inside and finds a box containing televisions, another box with phone headsets, a third box with bottles of drinks meant for export, and another box with special rainproof clothing, which she puts on. She also finds duct tape and starts sealing the holes in the container to prevent more water from flooding in, because if more water leaks in and the container tilts further, it will sink. Suddenly, Maya hears women screaming. She looks through a hole in the container and sees container number 107 beside her, the one Miko is in. The women inside are screaming because the container is actually sinking. Maya is devastated as she watches Miko's container sink in front of her eyes. She feels completely hopeless and keeps listening to his recorded voice messages as she tries calling him, but his phone remains off. After some time, Maya finds a blade and a knife and considers cutting her wrists and ending her life. But she suddenly snaps out of her despair and remembers that she is no longer just one person, she is two, because of the baby inside her. She decides to fight and challenge death in order to save the child in her womb, which becomes her top priority. Maya tries to pump the water out of the container using a hose, but the amount of water coming in is far greater than what she can remove. She realizes she is exhausting herself for nothing. She then marks the container walls to measure the water level, allowing her to track how much it rises each day. She also hangs her photos with Miko on a line to dry, since they are the only things she has left of him. Suddenly, Maya receives a call on her phone from an unknown number. She answers and is shocked to hear Miko's voice. She is overjoyed to learn that he is still alive. Miko explains that his phone battery died, so he borrowed another phone to call her. He tells her that the truck driver who was transporting his container tricked them and forced him and several others to get out of the container just before it was loaded onto the ship, leaving them behind at the port. Miko had believed that Maya was safely on the ship and that everything was going fine. Maya shocks him by telling him the truth, that the container she was in fell off the cargo ship into the sea, and that she is now alone inside it in the middle of the ocean, with no idea where she is. Miko panics for her safety and begs her to take care of herself and the baby inside her, encouraging her to stay strong and hold on until someone comes to rescue her. The call then cuts off. Soon after, a violent storm hits, and rain starts flooding the container even faster through the holes. At the same time, Maya goes into labor. She gives birth in the middle of the ocean and discovers that the baby is a girl. She is overwhelmed with joy and feels a renewed sense of hope for life with the birth of her daughter. By the third day, Maya tries to breastfeed her baby, but realizes she must eat first so her body can produce milk. She eats very small portions to conserve the food for as long as possible, then feeds her daughter. Maya then thinks of making an opening in the container's ceiling using a drill she found among the cargo. She plans to drill several holes close together so she can remove that section and create a makeshift roof opening. She wants to do this for 3 reasons. First, so she and her baby can escape the container, since it will eventually fill with seawater and sink. Second, so the opening can act like a sunroof, allowing her to see everything around her and spot any passing ships to signal for help. Third, so she can breathe fresh air, because the container has become suffocating, which is dangerous for a newborn baby. One night, whales pass close to the container, making loud, frightening sounds that scare the baby and cause her to cry. On the 5th day, Maya is still trying to make an opening in the roof of the container. Rain starts falling, so she fills bottles and cans because her drinking water is almost gone. The drill's battery runs out, so Maya continues working on the opening with a knife. After many days of effort and repeated attempts, she finally succeeds in opening the hole. Maya climbs on top of the container with her baby to enjoy the fresh air, the view of the sea, and the warmth of the sun for both herself and her newborn. Her food supply is nearly finished, so she starts thinking about alternatives. One day, Maya notices a school of fish swimming around the container. She takes a metal rod, attaches a knife to its tip, ties it with a rope, and throws it into the water, trying to catch a fish, but she fails. Later, while she is on top of the container, Maya spots an airplane flying overhead. She quickly climbs back down, grabs a broken piece of mirror, and tries to go back up. However, her foot gets injured on the sharp edge of the opening. She immediately starts reflecting sunlight with the mirror, hoping the pilot will see her and rescue her, but unfortunately, no one on the plane notices. She goes back down into the container, cleans her wound, disinfects it with an alcoholic drink, finds a needle, and stitches the wound herself. The next day, Maya makes a fishing net using simple materials and manages to catch some fish. She is extremely happy, but she has to eat the fish raw because she has no way to cook it. One day, while showing her daughter pictures of herself and her father, Maya tells her that they were forced to close the shop they owned because of the economic crisis and the shortage of goods. She also tells her that she is confident her father will be able to save them, because he always finds solutions. As she shows her the photos, Maya decides to name her daughter Noah. She tells her that the name Noah comes from the prophet Noah, that it is a meaningful and beautiful name, and that it will be a good sign for surviving the difficult situation they are in, just as God saved Noah and those with him from the flood. Maya feels hopeful, because their situation is very similar, except that she is inside a container, not a ship. Still, she is certain that she and her daughter will survive. She also tells her the story of Noah's Ark, which carried animals and birds of every kind. After that, Maya shows her a picture of her first daughter, Cam, whom the government forcibly took from her and Miko. Maya had been extremely careful to hide her child at home so no one would know they had a daughter and take her away. But one day, the little girl went outside and was playing with a paper kite in front of the house. The police saw her, captured her, and killed her. Since then, Maya has lived with deep guilt over what happened to her daughter Cam. One night, the cold is intense, so Maya wraps her baby tightly to keep her warm. She then pours a small amount of alcohol and lights it to create some heat, and lies down beside her daughter for a while. She later wakes up to the sound of knocking, without knowing where it's coming from. Soon after, Maya receives a call from Miko. Because her phone screen is cracked, she struggles to answer, but after several attempts she manages to pick up. She is shocked to hear him crying, telling her that he cannot reach her because he was shot and is now dying. Maya is devastated. She tells him that she gave birth to a baby girl and named her Noah. Miko is overjoyed and asks to hear her voice. Maya lets him hear the baby crying. That is the first, and last, time Noah hears her father's voice. The call then disconnects. Maya lies on top of the container holding her baby, overwhelmed with sadness. She feels that she no longer has any hope of survival, and that her only purpose now is to save Noah, even if she doesn't survive herself. She feels guilty toward Miko because she was the one who suggested escaping in such a dangerous way. Still, she pushes herself to stay strong and keep fighting until the very end. By the 15th day, Maya has written her diary and the full story of her journey across the sea on sheets of paper and hung them on the walls of the container, so that if someone ever finds them, they will know her story and understand her suffering. The container begins to completely fill with water, so Maya makes a float for her daughter using plastic bottles and a wooden board, so that when they leave the container, the baby will be safe on top of it. Maya sees seagulls flying overhead and feels happy, believing land must be nearby, since seagulls usually appear near the coast. But the container is now sinking. Maya dives underwater inside the container to grab a box of food, but her legs get tangled in straps and a crate. She tries to pull free but can't, so she takes out her knife and cuts the straps while holding her breath. In the end, she succeeds. Maya resurfaces, but realizes her daughter has drifted far away and is no longer where she left her. Suddenly, a whale swims close to Noah, drawing Maya's attention to her. Maya is relieved when she finds her baby and swims toward her. She keeps swimming with her daughter on the float she made, with a rope tied to Maya's hand and connected to the float, so that if she fell asleep or lost consciousness, the float wouldn't drift away. Seagulls circle above Maya and her baby. Completely exhausted, Maya eventually gives in and sinks into the water, but her hand remains tied to the rope attached to the float. The seagulls catch the attention of a girl aboard a small passing boat. She notices the float because of the birds circling above it and alerts her father, the boat's captain. They immediately head toward the float. They manage to rescue the baby and at first don't find anyone else with her, but they sense that someone must have been there. The girl pulls the rope and brings Maya out of the water. She tries to perform CPR and rescue breathing, but it doesn't work at first. Feeling sorry for the baby and believing her mother is dead, the girl tries again, and this time she succeeds. Maya spits out seawater she had swallowed, and the first thing she does is hold Noah tightly in her arms and cry, but these are tears of joy, not sorrow. And with that, the film comes to an end. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.